I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, June 21st of 2022. First up, we have messages from board members. Do we have any messages from the board?
I would just like to welcome Jennifer Lloyd to the board and say we're glad she's a part of us now.
Thank you.
I would just like
I
to
guess
say.
I should have started with that. By the way, we have a new board member, Jennifer Lloyd, so thank you, Jennifer, for agreeing to serve on the Board of Public Works. And we will just keep the titles, so you'll remain President, Kyla. Jennifer will just fill in as Vice President for the rest of this term. Elizabeth will serve as Secretary for the rest of the year. And yeah, so welcome aboard, Jennifer. Thank you for reminding me, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, next up we have petitions and remonstrances. If we have anyone who is here to make a public comment on something that is not on the agenda this evening, now is the opportunity to do so. If you are on Zoom and wish to make a public comment, you can either use the raised hand function, or you can type a comment in the chat, or let us know that you would like to speak using the chat. And if you're here in person, you can approach the podium.
And this is for items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody on the Zoom meeting that wants to offer public comment on anything not on the agenda?
That's from previous. There are no chats
Okay.
and no raised hands.
All right. Seeing none, next up is Title VI enforcement. First is abatement at 2225 South High Street.
Hi, my name is Joe Stong. I'm one of the compliance officers for HAND, Housing and Neighborhood Development. We, on May 19th, 31st, and June 9th, we issued tickets for overgrowth at this address. We have heard nothing until today from the petitioner, and today he indicated he would like to be here and his power is out, and sent texts to that effect. And I thought he might call in. But,
We do have it on phone, so he may be on.
okay, so he would like to be here, and we're requesting a permission to enter the property to abate the violations.
Thank you. Is the property owner on the line? If so,
Mr.
William Adam.
William, if you are here for the abatement, can you unmute yourself so you can speak, please? He is not responding.
Yeah, I'm
there he is.
unmuted. Yeah, hi, how are you?
Great. If you'd like to offer a statement to the board, now would be the time.
and if you could go ahead and just state your name so that we have that for the record.
Sure, it's William Walker Adam.
Very good. You're welcome to make your comments if you'd like.
Oh, I would, and I agree with the previous speaker. It's grossly overgrown. And this whole issue began on March 26th of 21, where the city was attempting to make a walking trail, which was successfully done. They removed one of my trees, a 50-year-old pine. It was roughly 60 feet tall, that was not to be removed. Mr. Males, Nicholas Males, Roy Hayden, and also the land acquisition person, Scott Walker, had assured me it wouldn't be removed. So after this, my sewer due to the project had to be replaced, and it was. But the trench that was dug in that front yard was never filled in. And I was rightfully so very angry about this. And so my mailbox had been removed. I didn't receive mail for a few weeks. I am disabled. I did once attempt to cut the front around the large trench the city had left. I have a Hustler Super Z industrial mower, and I chipped a blade on it, which is no big deal, but it's also a very difficult thing, time-consuming thing to replace, which I did. I once again called Mr. Aiden, Roy Aiden. This was June 16th. And he said that he would prefer if I not mow the yard until, which would be my corner in my front yard, until the project was finished. And I agree. I think that was, I agree. I agreed. I'm just watching the text here, and it's not exactly right. But so I agreed to not cutting it until the project was done. So August came around. I do believe I received a complaint from the post office for not having my mailbox in. This is while the path was still largely gravel before it had been blacktopped. And so I talked to this individual, officer number 232, and he was like, okay, you know, we're not going to fine you because you have clearance not to cut it. Well, I called Mr. Aiden again about refilling the trench to my new sewage line, my new water line, and nothing happened. And I did insist that the municipality cut this. At this juncture, Bluestone was the company that created the walking path, at least on my section of the plan. I have numerous photographs of this. I have a statement from the Bluestone representative. Anyway, I have an open trench in my yard. I have one large stump that the city did not remove. I have bags of concrete now, which are solidified, that were left in my corner lot. I also have city signs, and I have a child crossing. I have portions of my driveway still in the yard. My point is that as it stands, that is unmowable. I have talked to MCCSC and their representative who maintains their yard. I talked to him last Thursday. Brett was the worker I talked to, and he profoundly agreed. It's not mowable. I still have large amounts of debris in the yard, and I would insist it's abated too.
This is Adam Wason, Public Works Director. Sir, is your entire yard unmowable because of this project?
No, my front yard is, and the side portion of my yard.
Is the rest of the
Which,
yard being maintained?
Yes.
Okay, so this is okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, why don't we do this? Can we table this for this evening, and we will reconvene with staff and try to determine, we'll have to probably meet on site and take a look. Does that make sense?
I think that would be great, and I've actually requested this one prior time. I believe it was August the 19th, where I was curious if, my water trench would ever be filled in. I mean, I apologize to June, and she has a very, very valid complaint. And I apologize to my nearest neighbors personally. I would like to resolve this as much as I'm sure that you guys would.
Joe, are you okay if we table this for this evening?
Yep.
I guess I would ask the board to make a motion to table this item till, or Jackie, do we need a table, or can we, if we can get a motion just to table, and we'll hopefully have this settled before our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments on this item aside from the property owner's comments? Okay. Seeing none. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we table the issue of the abatement at 2225 South High Street until a future meeting.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up, we have abatement at 4416 East Clayton Court.
So on May 5th, 19th, 31st, and June 9th, we issued tickets at this address for overgrowth. I've had no response at all from the owners or anybody involved with the property, so we're asking for permission to abate it.
Any questions from the board on this item?
Just have a process question. The abatement on High Street, there were 3 NOVs before it came to us, and this one there were 4.
It just kind of worked out that way.
Okay.
There's not typically typically we start with a warning, and on this property, I happened to get out there another time before the meeting, and on Mr. Adams Street, I did not.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
Are there any public comments on this item?
I see no chats or raised hands.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we abate the property at 4416 East Clayton Court.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have the approval of minutes for June 7th of 2022. We have Resolution 2022-38, renew mobile vendor in public right-of-way for Weaver's Smoke Eaters. We have Buskirk Chumley Partnership Agreement, a bonding agreement with Monroe County Highway Department, 2023 service agreement with Precision Concrete, Inc., Resolution 2022-43, Bloomington Housing Authority Family Night Out, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening?
Kylie, yes, I think we're going to ask that we remove the Buskirk Chumley Partnership Agreement to the new business, and I'll present that during new business.
Okay, we'll move it to the first item under new business.
Yes, please.
Excuse me, Jackie Moore from City Legal. Just wanted to let you know that when it says 2023 service agreement, it actually is the second half of 2022. So if we could,
Oh, for Precision?
yes.
So that's an error, just an
That
error
was
on our
just a
sheet.
typographical, the
Okay.
paperwork's fine.
All right, so number 5 should read 2022 service agreement with Precision Concrete, Inc. Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion on moving the Buskirk Chumley Partnership Agreement to new business?
I move that we move the Buskirk Chumley Partnership Agreement from the consent agenda to new business tonight.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And then do we have any public comments on anything within the consent agenda this evening?
I see no chats or raised hands.
Seeing none, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting, June 21st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, under new business, we have Buskirk-Chumley Partnership Agreement.
All right, Adam Wason on behalf of Holly Warren and the Economic Sustainable Development Department. This is the Buskirk-Chumley Theater Management Agreement and Cooperative Partnership Agreement between the City of Bloomington Parks and Rec, Board of Public Works, Redevelopment Commission, and the Buskirk-Chumley Theater Management, Inc., since 2001. The 2022 partnership agreement returns to the multi-year model and will be in effect until December 31st of 2024. This is subject to the annual appropriation. The City Council budget provides $55,000 in annual operational funding to the BC Buskirk-Chumley Theater Management Corporation, and the agreement calls for this funding to be distributed in quarterly payments of $13,750 each. The Board of Public Works, through the claims process, administers those funds, and the Parks Department also will provide up to $15,000 annually for eligible maintenance projects via the Parks Operations Division Director. The Board of Parks Commissioners has already approved this agreement back in May of 2022. And in addition, the Redevelopment Commission will provide $74,000 annually from the Consolidated Tax Increment Financing District for eligible and permitted public improvements at the theater. And they voted to approve that at their May 2nd, 2022 meeting via Resolution 2226. We do ask for approval of this partnership agreement, and do believe that Jennifer will probably recuse herself from the vote. There's no direct conflict, but just in an abundance of caution. So that's why we've moved it to the new business. So, but yes, happy to try to answer any questions and do request approval.
Thank you. Questions on this item from the board? Is this agreement roughly the same agreement that we entered into last year?
Yes, these agreements have been entered into since 2001, when the city retook ownership management of the Buskirk, and so these have been either annual or 2-year agreements ever since then.
Great, thank you. Any public comment on this item?
If there is any public comment, you can either raise your hand or leave a comment in chat. I don't see anything.
All right. Do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the Buskirk-Chumley Partnership Agreement.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Yes, I recuse myself.
All right. Motion passes with one recusal. Next up is Resolution 2022-39, uphold order to remove structure at 2607 North Walnut Street.
Mike Arnold, Housing and Neighborhood Development. This is a property we did orders to seal on June 10th of 2021. We requested that all the openings that were broken windows or open doors be sealed on this structure. On July 28th, we sent a past deadline letter because we had not gotten compliance. On August 16th, we finally did get some compliance on the order. But then you can see on October 1st, December 14th, and January 6th, when we did drive-bys, the property was out of compliance again. So we sent letters requesting compliance with the order. January 25th, we sent a request to access the property so that we could assess what it would take to actually get the structure sealed. Again, on February 15th, we sent another out of compliance letter. On March 24th, we sent the letter to the agent via email to try to get contact with the owner. And on March 29th, we received a letter signed from the owner stating that we could access the property to evaluate what we would need to do in order to seal the structure. On April 27th, we discussed with the agent the possible removal of the structure to see if they would discuss that with the owner. By June 2nd, we had not received any confirmation one way or the other, so we sent an order to remove on the structure. And the reason we did an order to remove was because as a public nuisance, we're consistently having to go out and evaluate the property and make sure it's in compliance. And at this time, we would request that the board uphold the order to remove the structure so it's no longer a nuisance.
Thank you. And now, do we have the property owner in attendance? Okay, thank you. If you'd like to make comments about this, you're welcome to just state your name at the podium, make comments.
I'm not sure, should I be toward any particular microphone? Or just...
That one that's up there at the top, if you want to
one?
just bend it
Okay.
down a little, yeah, that'd be great.
My name is Vince Taylor. I'm an attorney in Bloomington. Actually, I have my offices on the north side of town, so I'm familiar with this property because I drive by it all the time. There's an old Holiday Inn on North State Road 37 Business, which is the extension of Walnut Street. And my client, Prime Power, it's a corporation owned by a Chinese woman named Chow Zhao, who is now in China, and hopefully she's watching on Zoom. Mr. Wheeler was kind enough to give me the codes to get her here, so hopefully she's watching this. But anyway, so this was part of that, but as you know, there's a place called the Cascades Inn now, so a part of that area was redone as a motel. This branch had been sold to somebody else, and it was in horrible shape. And my client, I wasn't her attorney then, but my client purchased it. She had a woman named Ivy Hesea, who was a realtor in town, who helped determine that and helped her with the purchase. She, in fact, was a graduate student here at Indiana University, and that's her connection to Bloomington. And that's why she got involved in this with her father. But anyway, they bought a horrible piece of property. It was owned by a gentleman that had a number of run-ins with Han before. I wish I would have known her then, so I could have stopped her from buying this property, but I didn't. As soon as they bought the property, they tried to remove the tenants, and most of them they got out. One they couldn't, so there was a long fight, and then there was COVID, so they weren't able to get into the property to repair it because they had to remove everybody. They had plumbing that had to be redone in the parking lot. So that's a separate matter. But I have our position at this point, after having talked with Alexa, this is Alexa Knighty, who's here with me. She does management work for the property, and a lot of emails with Chow, who's in China, as I said before. We do not oppose what the city wants done. I mean, if this thing is ever going to be, she's scared half to death. She's going to lose, well, at least $1 million as a result of this purchase. But she is willing to do whatever is necessary to, first of all, secure it, because that's part of the problem. People will break into these units, and so, of course, it is a public nuisance. The neighbors don't want the homeless, and who knows, not just homeless, anybody who wants to break in a unit to do whatever. And Alexa does not know why she perhaps did not receive all the notifications that were mentioned. They may have been sent to China. But as I said, I didn't get involved until about a week ago when I got the notice of this meeting. But anyway, the first thing they want to do is to secure the property, and then they want to find a company to demolish the building. I would note we've been given a deadline till July 31st. Alexa's going to talk a little bit about what she's tried to do so far to find somebody to do it, because if the city knows somebody that can do it before that date, that would be good to know. But the first thing they want to do is to put a fence around it, secure it so nobody can get in it, to give them more time to try to get a contractor to do the demolition work. So I'm going to ask Alexa if she can discuss that with you briefly.
Thank you. And if you'll just state your name for the record.
Alexa Knighty.
Thank you.
So I've been calling around to several different people. We've had a couple people either tell us that they can't get to it until October, or that they are not equipped to demolish that big of a structure. And everybody else, I'm still waiting for them to give us an actual bid on the property. So I guess we are just wanting to either find someone who can immediately do it for us or have enough time to hire one of these companies to do it when they can fit us in. And like Vince said, if anyone had a recommendation on a company who could get it done by that deadline, we would be open to working with them to have the structure demolished by the July 31st date.
May I ask, how long have you been trying to reach out to agencies that do demolition work locally here?
Well, so the owner and I just came to an agreement late last week for me to assist her on the property, on the project. So I have been doing it since probably around Wednesday or Thursday of last week.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the board on this item for staff or for property owner representation?
Yes, you talked about putting a fence around the property. What other measures are you considering for securing the property between now and the time that you're able to demolish it?
I want to apologize, but I've got a handout here to give to everybody.
Okay.
About the steps they plan on taking.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you provide one to Mr. Wheeler as well? Thank you. And has this been provided to any city staff before now? No?
No, we just got.
This, okay. This is just the first time any city staff's taken a look. Great.
As I said, I received a notice about this.
Please to the microphone, sorry.
I received a notice about this last week, and I called Mr. Roberts, but then he had Mr. Wheeler call me today. So I've had 2 conversations with him, and we talked about this, but we just got this list together today.
Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And just to confirm, it's the property owner's desire to remove this structure. It's, the matter is the timing, is that the concern?
Well, as I said, and as Alexa said, we've come into this late. But once again, I do have to say that Chow, this is all very alien to her. I mean, and I don't know how a college student ends up buying an apartment complex. But she did, and she needs help. And so we're trying to help her the best we can, even though this probably should have been dealt with much sooner than it's been dealt with. And we apologize for that. And I've worked with Mr. Wheeler with regard to this property earlier because of the tenant problem I mentioned and the fact they weren't repairing it. And we, in fact, consented to a lien being placed against the property, a judgment in favor of the city, in hopes that ultimately we can satisfy the city as to that, what's going to happen to that piece of property.
Okay, so I just wanted to be clear that the property owner's desire is to remove the structure.
Could she speak?
Yeah, if the.
What would
if-
have to happen?
We can just, if the property owner, I'm sorry, how did you say you pronounced the first name? Shao. If Shao would like to make any public comment, right now would be the time. We're going to unmute you, Shao. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
It's my intention to remove this structure, but I need time to find a contractor to do this. And as Alexa says, there is no one can do this before the fall, as we know. So if you have a recommendation, that would be the best.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to give Mr. Wheeler an opportunity to just make a comment on behalf of City Legal.
Thank you. Chris Wheeler, City Legal. Vince and I did talk earlier today, and everything that he's stating is accurate to what we talked about in regards to what the city at least would want to see as far as good faith and substantial steps taken to have the property owner be responsible for the issues that are on her property. And that would include the type of security measures that we're seeing here espoused in the plan that's been presented, as well as then taking the steps to find an appropriate contractor. However, I would like to ask, though, for this board still to uphold the order that was issued. We will still look for that 31st of July deadline, but if we see substantial steps actually being taken in good faith towards getting this issue resolved, we would come back and ask this board for an extension of that deadline to allow the property owner to get this taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that all is fine with us as well.
Great.
Thank you. Very good. Question, it might be for Mr. Wheeler, it might be for another member of hand staff, just to walk us through the process on the next steps. If this order is upheld, I know we just heard, the hand department is going to be looking for progress to be made based on this list, and that significant progress has been done. If significant progress is not made, what would be the next steps that the city would be taking?
Okay, so what happens next is an order then is issued. Once this is upheld, our administrative order, then the hearing authority, which is this board, issues its own order upholding what the administrative order was. That order is a continuous abatement order that lasts for 2 years. So we actually have a longer time to operate within. We'll still have the deadline of the 31st and be able to monitor from this point forward. If the property owner fails to adhere to the deadline of the 31st, then we would be coming back to ask this court for an opportunity to issue requests for bids from contractors so that the city could go forward and abate the property. And we would also be able to issue fines if we wanted to, and I believe that's up to $1,500 as each step of fines goes forward. I don't think that HAND has generally asked for fines. HAND has generally wanted just to abate the properties when we get to that stage.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on this item? Any public comment from anyone not in ownership of the property?
If there's any member of the public who has additional comments, please either raise your hand or use the chat function, please. I don't see any.
Okay. Seeing none. Is there a motion from the board?
I move that we approve Resolution 2022-39 to uphold the order to remove the structure at 2607 North Walnut Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks. Next up is Encroachment Resolution 2022-34 for a retaining wall at IUEMS on West 1st Street.
Good evening. This is Neil Cocker with the Engineering Department. I am covering for Emily Herr, who unexpectedly couldn't be here this evening. This is an encroachment agreement for Indiana University Health Bloomington. They are requesting to place a new retaining wall into the right-of-way at 914 West 1st Street. The site was developed under a grading permit, which required them to construct a sidewalk and a tree plot within the right-of-way in order to meet requirements of the city's transportation plan. Due to the grades of the site, the retaining wall is required adjacent to that sidewalk. The encroachment agreement is the city's standard encroachment agreement language. It clarifies, among other things, the maintenance responsibilities of that encroachment, and that the owner would be responsible for any costs to remove that encroachment if ever required by the city. And I believe there is a John Thomas with Bynum Panyo as representing the requester, if there are any further questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Any public comment on this item?
If any member of the public has comment, please either raise your hand or leave a chat. I see none.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the encroachment resolution 2022-34 for a retaining wall at IUEMS on West First Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is encroachment resolution 2022-40 for flood mitigation walls, accessible ramp, deck access stair, and walk at 403 East 4th Street.
Neil Copper again with the engineering department. So the property owners of 403 East 4th Street are requesting that elements be placed into an encroachment agreement. Site elements that are in the right-of-way that will either be renovated or remain as existing are their parking area, window wells, flood mitigation walls, deck access stair, accessible ramp with railings and stairs, and an adjacent concrete sidewalk. The property owners are requesting approval to encroach into the right-of-way with those elements. The work described above will require a right-of-way use permit. The petitioner intends on staging their construction equipment in the existing parking area, so they will not be requesting a sidewalk or lane closure. If approved, and once the right-of-way use permit is granted, the petitioner will confirm that their start date and work does not interfere with the nearby Hidden River project. I believe there is also a representative for this encroachment if there are any further questions.
Thank you. Questions on this item? All right. Any public comment on this item?
I'm not sure who the representative is.
We've got Mr. Harstead and Mr.
Is it?
DeSoler.
Okay.
but-
If there is any comment on this item, please either put it in chat or raise your hand. I see none.
All right, seeing none. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the encroachment resolution 2022-40 for flood mitigation walls, accessible ramp, deck access stair, and walk at 403 East 4th Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is contract with Resurfacing, Inc. for the Hopewell Phase 1 East Demolition Project.
Good evening, Matt Smillers with the Engineering Department. The Hopewell Phase 1 East Demolition Project includes the demolition of existing houses and buildings on the Hopewell site. Bids were opened on June 6th, and the city received 5 bids for the project. The lowest bid received from Bluestone was not a complete bid. Bluestone only bid on the tree removal portion of the contract. The second lowest bid received from Omega also was not responsive. They did not include all of the necessary documentation with their bid. So we moved on to the third lowest bidder, being Renaissance, and they submitted a bid of $588,775.02, and we did find them to be responsive and responsible. The demolition is expected to begin in July and will take 60 days. This contract was approved by the Redevelopment Commission earlier this evening, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions on this item? And so the team feels good about the difference between the upper 2 bids and the one that is considered the lowest responsive and responsible?
Yes, the Bluestone bid just included the tree removal portion of the contract, so they did not actually bid on all the items on the contract. That's why there's such a discrepancy there.
Mm-hmm.
And this, the bid from Renaissance was actually a substantial amount below our estimate, so.
Okay. And have we worked with that group before?
We have not, but they are also doing the main hospital building demolition. They're out of Indianapolis, and they've done numerous other demolition projects, so they have a good track record.
So they were already planning to mobilize to
Yes,
that area, which probably helped with the bidding process.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And then this is sort of just, this is more of a redevelopment type of question, but could you just give us a quick sort of overview on where we are in that process for that property? Because I know we're currently in the phase of preparing the property for redevelopment. Are there any updates that this board should be aware of, or where we're going next once this phase is complete?
So the demolition would, as I stated, take 60 days to complete, so that would put us towards the end of the summer for the demolition. The reconstruction plans for that area, as far as infrastructure to develop the lots, is being finalized now, and we hope to bid that work out for later this year.
Great.
And is that 2 years or a year and a half to complete all of that work? So that would be completed in summer of 2023.
And so then at summer 2023 is when the property would be ready for development of
You wanna go ahead?
residential.
Asking some big
I
questions.
know, it's a relay,
Department.
questioning here on this item.
Patrick Durgis, Engineering Department. It'd be possible if the right developer came in, they could start during our infrastructure phase. But
Okay.
I would say spring to summer of 2024 is probably the earliest we would expect it to start.
Okay. Great. And if you could just state your name for the
Oh.
record.
Patrick Durgis, Engineering Department, Project Engineer.
Thank you. Other questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
We don't have very many people left on the Zoom call. If anyone has any comments, please either raise your hand or use the chat function, please. I see none.
Seeing none. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the contract with Renaissance Inc. for the Hopewell Phase 1 East demolition project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is design contract modification number 4 for the Beeline Extension Project.
Good evening, Roy Ayton with the City Engineering Department. This is our Beeline Extension Project, which it has been a while since we've been to the board, so quickly what we're doing is extending the Beeline from its Adam terminus all the way over to Fountain Drive, and then we're additionally building a multi-use path that'll go up the east side of Fountain Drive, east side of Crescent, and connect up to our existing infrastructure up on 17th Street. The project's in design right now in the right-of-way phase. Before us this evening, this is a modification to the design contract. It will add design services for the extension of sanitary sewer main, as well as the right-of-way services for an unexpected property discrepancy. The contract amount prior to this modification is $883,699. This modification will add $7,647 to the contract for a final not-to-exceed amount of $891,346. The project itself is funded through our TIF district, and this modification also will have to go to the RDC for approval.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
What was the unexpected property discrepancy?
There were 2 parcels actually where nobody owned anything. So they were just the property lines didn't meet up. So we couldn't acquire the property until we figured out who owned the property. So there were some additional title and encumbrances reports that we had to get just to find the ownership.
Very interesting. Any other questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
Again, we don't have very many people left on Zoom. So if anybody has any comment, please either raise your hand or leave a chat. I see none.
Seeing none. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the design contract modification number 4 for the Beeline Extension project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is award contract to E&B Paving, Inc. for the Smith Road resurfacing project.
Matt Smithers again with the engineering department. The Smith Road resurfacing project will include the milling and repaving of Smith Road between 3rd Street and 10th Street. Bids were opened on June 17th, and we received 2 bids with E&B Paving submitting the lowest bid at $334,334. Construction is anticipated to begin in July. There will be single lane restrictions in place during construction utilizing flaggers, and the project was funded through a community crossing matching grant and local funds. I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we award the contract to E&B Paving, Inc. for the Smith Road resurfacing project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is award contract to Groomer Construction for the Dunn Street Sidewalk Improvements Project.
Hi, Sarah Gomez, City Engineering Department. This project will construct a sidewalk, tree plots, curbs, curb ramps, and alley apron on the west side of North Dunn Street in order to fill in a sidewalk gap between 15th Street and 16th Street. The project was prioritized and will be funded by the City Council Sidewalk Committee. The earliest date for the contractor to begin construction will be June 22nd, and the project will close the southbound lane of Dunn Street between 15th and 16th Street and install a detour route that uses 17th Street, Indiana Avenue to 14th Street. And the project will run for approximately 60 days with an anticipated completion date around mid-August. Bids were received at a public meeting on Friday, June 17th, 2022, and the board has received the following 2 bids. Groomer Construction, $203,365.36, and Milestone Contractors at $244,600, with Groomer Construction as the apparent lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
So late June, 60 days takes us to students coming back, and obviously a very student-oriented part of town, really a lot of traffic. I just want to make sure that staff approves of the detour route and is all on board with that.
Yeah, yep, they've gone through those process.
Okay, thanks.
And likewise, obviously, there's a lot going on 17th Street. I am speculating that staff has coordinated to where all of the detour activity is not going to further complicate anything that might be in place right now on 17th Street.
There's a lot of other projects going on in the area, so we had a specific meeting about all of the projects in that area to make sure nobody's overlapping each other, and we're good to go.
Very good.
The good thing for anything orientation or move-in, that section of Dunn south of 17th isn't going to get a lot of the traffic. It's more north of 17th. But we are all very closely watching that entire area, as is IU Athletics, and we're having some very regular conversations, making sure everybody's coordinated, and it's a really great example of all of the projects coming together and realizing that there's some give and take, and we've moved some people away from dates that they wanted, and it's really been a really well-coordinated effort, so kudos to the engineering department for all of that.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that I appreciate all the coordination. There's so many projects going on that have come before us, and to engineering, certainly, and public works staff, thank you for everything you're doing to make this work. Any
other questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
I see no public comment.
Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we award the contract to Groomer Construction for the Dunn Street Sidewalk Improvements Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is Memorandum of Understanding between Indiana University and City of Bloomington regarding the North Eagleson Bridge Replacement Project.
Good evening, Neil Copper with the Engineering Department again. This is a project to replace the Eagleson Avenue Bridge, which is between 10th Street and Law Lane. It goes over the railroad tracks. It gets a little bit complicated just because there's a number of different parties involved. Currently, the bridge is under Indiana University, IU responsibility. After the project is complete, however, Monroe County, who typically maintains bridges, will take over maintenance responsibility for that bridge. The adjacent road, Eagleson Avenue, is under the city's jurisdiction. However, the Indiana Department of Transportation, INDOT, has identified federal funding that can be used to pay for the bridge's replacement, but only if the adjacent road isn't within a city jurisdiction, but is instead a private entity, including Indiana University. So INDOT is essentially saying that they can fully fund the bridge replacement using federal funds only if the city temporarily transfers the road over to IU. So that's what this memorandum of understanding does. It just clarifies temporary transfer of the road to IU. It clarifies hold harmless language, design coordination, maintenance responsibilities. The city has no financial involvement in the project. And then after project completion, assuming the city agrees with the work that was done, we would accept the adjacent street back into our inventory. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that.
Thank you.
The quizzical looks of board members has been really amazing here. This is Adam Wason, Public Works Director. We've been working on this for some time. This first came up several years ago when there were some issues with the bridge identified, and ownership of the bridge was figured out, and everybody was like, "Oh, wow, So this has been a long conversation. Really appreciate INDOT stepping in to say, "Hey, here's how we can really help, and here's what needs to happen." We've ran this through the traps and worked closely with IU Real Estate and IU Vice President Office for Capital Improvements and all of those folks. And this is a great outcome that requires little investment at the local level. Like Neil said, we'll transfer the road to Indiana University for the period of the project till everything's complete and accepted. Then Monroe County will take over the bridge like they manage all the bridges throughout the county, and everybody wins in the end. I did try to get it to be till 21-24 that IU would take the roadway, just to have a little less roadway. And it's actually kind of ironic. IU actually owns the portion of Eagleson Avenue from Law Lane up to 17th Street already. And there's some question that's been ongoing of who owns the traffic signal at Law Lane and Eagleson. So I don't think they were going to take me up on my offer, but we are very happy to be able to get all of this worked out. So yes, staff is very much seeking approval and appreciates all the coordination here as well.
Very good. Questions from the board?
I guess just a quick question. The map that's included in the packet, it says Eagleson Avenue facilities north of this red line to be temporarily transferred. Does that mean for the entire rest of Eagleson, or is there a terminus spot in the part that will be transferred?
It would be, so basically the southern edge of Law Lane. Neil, correct me here, but I believe it's the southern edge of Law Lane because north of there is what IU owns.
Okay, so that full block of Eagleson.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't have a good discrete question on this item. I think, it's fascinating to me, the ownership of these roadways and how, I guess it's one of those matters of sort of historic transfers and transitions on what roadways are owned by the city versus owned by IU. And of course, I'm assuming then that the bridge maintenance was something that happened at some point in the past, but not before IU was considered to own that bridge. So the county, for some reason, did not have maintenance oversight on that bridge before.
I didn't see a question mark.
That was just a general word dump related to this particular item.
It's been really interesting and complicated, and yeah, learned a lot about bridge maintenance and IU history here over time. But yeah, in the end, they're going to basically redo the superstructure of the bridge, for sure, secure. There are some utilities like electrical lines and things that run underground there, so there's a lot of coordination going on. But yes, it's been one of those where I think a lot of people learned a lot of things as they were researching, and I'm pretty sure, I would have loved to have seen Jason Bannock's face when he finally did find that deed to the bridge that said IU owned it, because that would have been, yeah. But, so yeah, appreciate all the coordination though.
And incidentally, even though it goes over the railroad is not involved. Is this correct?
I believe the railroad.
I saw wishy-washy.
Neil?
I think the railroad will definitely be involved during the design of the bridge. There are requirements for how high the bridge has to be above the railroad. The current bridge may not be in compliance with those requirements. So they'll be involved, but not monetarily involved. Usually with bridges, whoever's on top is responsible.
Okay. And then ultimately, when the work is done, the roadway and ownership of the bridge transfers to the city with maintenance going to the county as it's been?
No, the roadway would transfer back to the city. The bridge would transfer to Monroe County's inventory, the bridge structure itself.
Okay.
Neil, did I say, I should just let Neil talk.
You got it. I can't seem to turn on my video here, so you're good.
Okay. I think I understand. Any other questions or random thoughts, observations? All right. Any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment.
We've run them away. Yes. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the Memorandum of Understanding between Indiana University and the City of Bloomington regarding the North Eagleson Bridge Replacement Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have requests from Indiana University for road closure on North Fee Lane between 11th and 13th Streets, and this is June 29th of 2022 through August 13th of 2022.
Good evening. Adam Wason on behalf of Paul Kerberg and the engineering department. So this kind of came into us a bit late here, but want to try to help facilitate with IU. They need to close a lane of traffic on Fee Lane between 11th, which 11th is the street that is just north of the Kelly parking garage there by the steam plant, and then up to 13th Street, which is the street just south of McNutt. So they'll have lane closures there as they work on a steam line project with Reed & Sons. For anybody that's ever been around that area of campus and been sitting at Law Lane and Fee Lane intersection and trying to turn left, you'll look into a big pile of, big stream of steam coming out from underneath the roadway, which has some line of sight issues and visibility issues. So this will rectify that issue. Trying to get this, obviously, as with all things in that area of the city and campus, to get it complete before student rush in August. And so we're requesting approval for this from June 29th through August 13th, 2022.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Does staff approve of their closure plan?
Yes.
Thanks.
And the other thing to add here, too, is all of the adjacent property is IU-owned. So, yes.
Will there be some advance signage, just so people who are driving to that parking garage is, of course,
Yes.
what I think of, who are out of habit going to be going in that direction. If they get notification ahead of time, that they can then take an alternate route,
Yeah, well-
detour, or go in from another direction.
I believe the detour signs are already starting to pop up and such, so yeah.
Okay.
And they're not scheduled to close until the 29th. I think some things will be delivered in the area here over the next couple days and through next week. But yeah, then we'll ask that they even get up their advance warning sign as quick as possible.
Great. Any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Very lonely meeting. All right, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the request from Indiana University for road closure on North Fee Lane between 11th and 13th Streets from June 29th, 2022 through August 13th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have staff reports and other business.
Once again, Adam Wason, Public Works Director. Just a few updates on staff reports. The animal shelter is bursting at the seams with animals. They're at full capacity. We've got more dogs and cats and fosters than we usually do. Head down to the animal shelter, find a forever friend, or two or three, and help with the population issues down at the shelter. Kudos to the staff down there. We're currently short-staffed. We've got some position vacancies. It's the middle of summer. It's 100 degrees. It's all the things. And as I always talk about with the animal shelter staff, they're some of the most dedicated and amazing team, one of the most amazing teams you would hope to work with, and just appreciate all that they're doing on behalf of animal welfare in the community. Just a couple updates on some things coming to the board. We're working with both Lotus and Pride Festival on their festival maps for approval, to bring forward to the board here. Some of the issues that are arising is, and we saw this with the Grand Falloon approvals, is public safety has not been comfortable with closing Lincoln or Washington with the other Kirkwood closures in place. So that's creating some conflicts with those requests for right-of-way use right now. So we're working with both of those teams to try to mitigate any of those concerns. Working hard to try to come to some compromises there so that each of those great events has the footprint they need to be successful, and so working towards that. But otherwise, just a really busy construction season. Thanks to all the crews in Public Works and across the city. They're working out in some really hot temperatures right now. Heat index is approaching 100, 105 some days, and until you've been on a paving crew and it feels like 110, 105 already, you just really great appreciation for all those team members out there doing all the work that they do. So that's all I have today.
Thank you.
Do you pull crews like that ever when the heat index gets too
What's that?
hot? Do you pull crews from paving crews?
If there's safety issues, yeah. I mean, encourage lots of breaks, cold towels, those sorts of things. But yeah.
Next up, we have approval of claims. Are there any, if you want, we can take just a second to check claims. I know they. Okay. Are there any questions on claims?
When I looked through them, I didn't see anything I wanted to necessarily highlight or bring to your attention. Pretty typical group set of claims.
Mm-hmm. Any public comment on claims? I'm going to go ahead and say there's never, but this would be the moment. All right. Is there a motion on claims?
I move that we approve claims in the amount of $847,586.53.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And if there is nothing else, I will call for adjournment.